Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
Extra Credits made a ridiculous video about video games forcing the player to be a Nazi. The justification was stupid, but the theory was right. When something is not portrayed as it actually is, then you get used to the false image of it and you end up using it out of context. For example, although you do not become a Nazi when you play a Nazi in a video game, you get used to the idea of referring to a Nazi as a generic bad guy without actually caring about the initial meaning of the word and how it relates to fascism. Keep letting people to use the word as if it's something else, and before you know it, the liberals are using it for accusing anyone they don't like, although ironically being Nazis themselves because of the ridiculous way they behave. Another classic example is the word Nigerian, which was generalized when referring to black slaves or to subhumans, or when one black man is saying it to another black man, it becomes a form of kinship. When you let people to normalize and generalize the meaning of words, the meaning keeps changing depending on what suits the individual at the moment. And I know language is a living, breathing concept that changes as people change with time, but there comes a point when they become buzzwords that don't mean anything specific and can bend around to mean whatever suits you the most. This shouldn't be allowed because you can never have clarity of claims. And I'm going to use Digipro as another example for what I mean, because his fanboys fall for this all the time and they don't even realize it. You know how he contradicts himself all the time, right? I've made several videos about it when he clearly does that. Every time I show it to one of his supporters, they always reply the same way. I'm using clips out of context, and if I see the whole thing, you know he's not contradicting anything. Yeah, he's totally never out of context. When the context keeps changing, you see, relativists like Digibro don't have a specific train of thought. They constantly derail when their emotions change, but because they keep talking for hours after the derailment, the low-intelligence audience assumes the train wreck is still on track. Words have a meaning. They are not pieces of paper you can interpret however the fuck you want to. Using them out of context leads to confusion and lack of communication. If Dr. Stone is an isekai, then The Walking Dead is an isekai too. You can never reach to an agreement when you let that happen. You become a Nazi who doesn't know what Moa is because of a Nigerian train wreck.
Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
This is my review of the flower symbolism within this episode. Once again, you pretend you don't understand why people are making fun of you every day. Just the fact you pretend you don't understand when it's so obvious is enough of a reason to be making fun of you every day. By the way, this video is about flower symbolism. You keep saying you're going to be honest and do your best to improve yourself, only to get dumber by the day. How do you expect anyone to take you seriously when you keep lying like that every day? More flower symbolism, since that is the title of the video. You're not just chilling and enjoying your anime. You make videos about them where you constantly show how stupid you are, and you have the nerve to call them reviews when they are not. A bit more flower symbolism. I wouldn't be naming the video flower symbolism if it wasn't about flowers, would I now? Until you stop ridiculing the community you so much pretend to love, we will all keep making fun of you every day. And the last flower symbolism. What? It's not a flower? Please! Why would I be showing something completely unrelated to what the title of the video is about? Stop hating, I'm just chilling and enjoying my flower symbolism. And if you don't like my videos, why are you watching them?
Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
These people are serious, and they just refuse to accept a very obvious fact.
Instead of burning mental energy as some sort of gatekeeping sorting hat trying to determine each idea's ultimate value according to some arbitrary hierarchy, it can be more productive to simply look for ways to use them.
Cracker was a slang for a whip. That's why blacks called whites crackers, from the crack of a whip. A Cracker Barrel is a barrel that held whips for sale, this is not correct, at the country store. You see the whip going from the R to the K? Racism in your face.
Actively engaging with media with an eye toward maximizing the amount of meaning and insight that can be discovered there, whether or not that meaning is explicitly intended.
The Faye's Cracker Barrel was inspired by the barrels full of soda crackers that were for sale in the country store markets.
Obviously, those references aren't intended by the author, unless they're extraordinarily precocious. But a reader who's trying to maximize what they can get out of it can still excavate that sort of interesting and worthwhile interpretation from the text.
This person putting out what can only be described as misinformation as fact, certified blue checkmark, when a simple, again, Google search would easily show you that, of course, Cracker Barrel comes from a literal barrel of crackers.
Someone who's stingier with their thinking might object to that sort of thing as a waste of time, claiming that none of that stuff is really in there. But for Deleuze and Guattari, nothing is really in anything. There's only the rhizome and the meaning that you can extract by playing with it.
We're just going to make things up to be offended by, when a simple Google search will give you the proof so you can move on with your day, having your favorite chicken fried steak and grits from Cracker Barrel tomorrow morning.
They're not illustrated children, though. They are just drawings. It is a drawing that can be interpreted however the fuck you want to. It's a piece of paper that is depicting whatever you say it is depicting. Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
This one on Reddit couldn't wrap his head around the reason people hate Rudy from Mushoku Tensei, which is expected when he uses the verb date instead of molest. Who wouldn't be confused when he doesn't use the proper words for something and reaches to a different conclusion because of it? So based on this erroneous opening statement, he wonders why people call him a pedo when he is a child. As if only adults can be pedos when the word pedo means being attracted to children and has nothing to do with their age. When you start your thesis with a mistake, you can only continue making more mistakes as you unfold your way of thinking. It's the same reason why progressives can't do anything right. I had a chat with him over this, and as simple as it sounds when he tried to explain it, good luck doing that when he starts off with an existential dilemma. How is he a pedo when he's in a different body? How much of your body can be taken away before you stop being you? The obvious answer is your behavior. You are you for as long as you think and act the same, which is why I use the battery example. If you take an empty battery to a different flashlight, it's still not going to work because the battery will be empty. If you take his memories and place them in a different body, he will still be the same person if he's acting the same way, which is exactly what happens, therefore he is still the same person. This is where the debate should have ended, but just like progressives are capable to overcomplicate a simple thing such as your gender, he needlessly overcomplicates the issue by saying Rudy is like a car that had all its parts replaced, therefore it's no longer the same car. I try to correct him by stating the most obvious thing. Rudy is not an entirely different person if he has the same memories as the guy he was before. If not even the memories were the same, then sure, he would be a different person. While at the same time making pointless the whole theme of reincarnation. What's the point of having it if he doesn't even remember who he was in the previous life? The guy had a hard time staying focused on the identity of someone and was flip-flopping between how you define yourself and how others define you. Just like a progressive who can't stay focused on one thing and constantly jumps from one thing to another in an attempt to confuse you instead of stating facts and be done with it. The topic changed to, if others don't know who you were, then to them you are just a normal child. If his mind is old and his body is young, then what is his actual age? He wanted to make it seem like Rudy can't be a pedo if he is a child, even when the word has nothing to do with his age. And round we went about semantics because of that. He thinks like a queer, someone who as long as he identifies as a different gender every 10 minutes, he is not accountable for his previous actions since he is a different person. When you don't use words and terms properly, you are bound to have comprehension difficulties since your perception changes randomly all the time. And that is why semantics and consistency are so important, and progressives are morons.
Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
Lots of shows have interesting themes, but not all of them explore the themes. And even amongst the shows that explore their themes, not all of them are doing a good job. The reasons for that are many, but they usually come down to lack of definition. The example I am using all the time is how gay food is not about heroes, it's about whatever bullshit the mangaka comes up with, which has nothing to do with heroes. The definition of heroism doesn't exist, and as a result there is no actual theme exploration regarding heroism. There is some sort of exploration going on, but it has to do with ideals in general, not heroism in specific. And for a show that is supposed to be about an academy that is all about teaching the students on how to be heroes, this comes off as highly hypocritical when it pretends to be specifically about heroism. The same issue can apply to many other shows that don't really define what they are about and use the term very loosely to the point it can be about anything. Is Naruto really about ninjas? Is One Piece really about pirates? They never exactly define what a ninja is or what a pirate is, because if they did, there would be a lot of things that can't be a ninja or a pirate, and the plot would be lacking variety. By leaving it vague, a ninja or a pirate or a hero can be about anything, and there are no limitations in what the story can be about. And as interesting as that sounds, because there will be infinite possibilities regarding storytelling, it also proves that there is no actual theme, and as a result there is no actual theme exploration. There can be exploration, but it won't be tied to a core theme, because there is no theme. It's a piece of paper that can be interpreted however the fuck you want to. It doesn't sound like the worst thing that can happen to a show, yet it is usually the reason people lose interest. Wasn't Bleach supposed to be about death, the afterlife, souls, sins, retribution? Weren't these themes that made Bleach so captivating and with a semblance of depth? Didn't these themes eventually become meaningless because the show stopped being about the theme exploration of everything I mentioned before and turned into a bunch of mindless sword fights? It lost what made it special by not remaining in those topics and became shit. Same thing with any other show. What do ninjas have to do with aliens from another dimension? What do heroes have to do with gathering points and becoming celebrities while constantly ignoring everything All Might and Stain are all about? If you don't define what a story is about and what is not about, you can't explore its themes because there are no limitations, and thus there is no specific direction. There is no real depth, there is nothing smart about it, it's random bullshit that fly around without rhyme or reason. Just like the plot of Gayfoot.
Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
Somebody defended the tranny who said the Chainsaw Man is all about being trans because it mentions freedom, as if a freedom can be nothing beyond being trans. Is One Piece about being a tranny? So this guy excuses it with a Digibro school of thought. It's a piece of paper that can be interpreted however the hell you want to. Freedom can be about anything, including being trans. That is the self-defeating claim of relativism. If there is no meaning beyond the meaning you give it, then what's the point in having definitions at all? Furthermore, if you have convinced yourself that the only meaning that matters is the one you give to something, then the only thing you can't see is yourself being projected on everything. Everything has to be about you, your political agenda, and sexual orientation, and degenerate fetishes, since you're the only one who matters when giving a definition to everything.
Most cis people don't spend time thinking so in depth about their gender identity, right? They don't get this sense of relief or euphoria when their identity is affirmed in even the simplest of ways.
You think you're the center of the universe and everybody else must kowtow before you, even if from their perspective they also have definitions of their own and they also see themselves projected onto everything. This is why the left self-destroys so easily. It's selfish people trying to control other selfish people. You can never reason with them because they don't care about your reason, they only care about their reason. A few days ago, Mr. Beast fired one of his assistants for having cyber sex with children, and every tranny out there yelled about discrimination. Because having cyber sex with children was given the definition of being trans, and everyone who doesn't like cyber sex with children is a transphobe. Pure insanity, right? Not if you're a progressive. You can give any definition you want to anything, and then change it in an instant for the sake of being always right. That is the result of not accepting specific definitions that have nothing to do with your political agenda, or sexual orientation, or degenerate fetishes. You become insane and without realizing it, you defend pedophilia. What's that? A tranny was fired for wanting to have sex with children? Why, that's transphobia! Would you say that if the criminal wasn't a tranny? Of course not, only trannies like me are allowed to do that. And what's that? Denji wants freedom in Chainsaw Man? Why, that means he's a tranny like me. And no word about Denji also being sexually molested by older women, which is the reason the tranny was fired in the first place. Pure insanity! That's what you get when you don't accept objective definitions, which are the basis of gold standards, which are the indicators of quality.
No, it is a drawing that can be interpreted however the fuck you want to.
Do you understand words that are coming out of my mouth?
So I found this 40-minute long video analyzing liberation in One Piece. At first I wanted to clip it, but then I realized it was nothing but vapid words that mean nothing if you take into account the execution of the theme, which is a complete mess. Anyone who ever wondered why I focus so much on the negatives of a story and so little on the positives? It's because if you follow gold standards, there are only a few ways to execute something right and a million ways to execute them wrong. Thus, I automatically have a lot more to say about the wrong than the right. As much as relativists want you to believe there is no right or wrong way to do something, it's obviously a lie. Everything in nature works out exactly because it keeps happening in very specific ways. You cannot scramble human DNA completely and create something that will count as human. You cannot mess around with gravity or temperature or even the percentage of oxygen in the atmosphere and assume life will still exist the same way. Everything follows a pattern. Does this pattern stay the same forever? No. It changes very slowly over thousands of years, which is where evolution comes in. Those who adapt survive, those who don't perish. For something to work out, it has to follow patterns. There have to be gold standards, and it's why relativism is bullshit. You don't have an infinite amount of options or tastes, and they are not equally important. Some are definitely better than others. Very few are actually great. If you think I am blabbering about nothing all this time, let me get to the point. Fiction is not that different when it comes to what works and what doesn't. Despite being free to create something in any way you like, it will work much better as fiction if it follows patterns. If it's consistent with its own in-series logic, if it follows the formulas that most people like, or if it follows specific writing rules that have been established centuries ago. Stories with no logic, no formulas that don't follow any rules will simply not work out for most people. As for those that it will work out, it's mostly because those people don't care about logic, formulas, rules, or patterns in general. It's those who only like an idea they see in a story, even if said story doesn't actually have that idea. For example, Piccolo does not represent the black man's journey in America. Mina is not black representation. The Kaioshins are not non-binary representation. These are all projections of people who have no idea how good fiction works onto the fiction they consume. It's not the show they actually like, it's their ideas that they project onto the show, and they automatically think they are great. The vast majority of analysts are just telling you everything is great, everything is deep, everything is foreshadowed and pre-planned before the Big Bang. I am not here to sell you a product, which by the way I am accused of not doing when that was never my intent. I am telling you if a show is following its own in-series logic, a formula that works out, or the writing rules are applied. When One Piece is supposed to be about liberation, when it's about the god of freedom following destiny while being controlled by his devil fruit the whole time, you don't have that. This guy who was spewing vapid words for 40 minutes regarding said liberation was not talking about the show, he was talking about his ideas that he projected onto the show without caring about execution. He is showing off his vocabulary without even making a point about the show, since nothing he said is about the show. And that is what I am exposing. Anyone who doesn't like that only wants to consume a product and be excited for more products. That is not what I aim to do, so why do you complain? If you don't like my videos, why are you watching them? I am not trying to take your money. I am not here to ponder the ideas you project onto a show. Piccolo is not black and Baby Kaioshin is not a queer. If you can't accept that, what are you doing here watching my videos? Just shave your head, promise never to have sex, and go to the libtard bubble where you belong. There, I projected my ideas onto you, did you like it? If you didn't, well, that's exactly how I feel when you do the same and complain I am not doing it. Funny how things feel like when you're on the other end,
Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
I often encounter incidents in forums where one person will say something and another person will reply that what he said are just buzzwords with no meaning. For example, I often use the term tasteless casuals to describe those I consider incapable to appreciate good shows from bad shows, and I have found many who told me that it's just a buzzword I am using all the time just for the heck of it, without actually proving or meaning anything with it. Down to it, buzzwords are slang, in-jokes, catchphrases, or plain one-liners that became popular amongst a certain group of people. They mean something, but because people can use them all the time just for the heck of it, they usually lose their meaning and are eventually used out of context, or in many cases with no context at all. Every term and word has the potential to become a buzzword if at any point it becomes popular and is used all the time because it attracts attention. And that also means that everything else that would normally be described by using the same term or word all of a sudden doesn't mean anything. You either need to use different words to describe them, which increases the chance of paraphrasing, or you need to invent new terms which need to be established so everyone can understand their meaning. And this happens to be a major problem when trying to have a discussion or to evaluate something. In order for such things to be done properly, you have to know what words and terms you're supposed to use, as well as understanding the meaning of them. Before we can talk about something, we first need to define what that something is. And after so many years in the forums, I can tell you right now that a big part of drama, misunderstandings, miscalculations, and downright mistakes are happening because people are not using the correct words or are using them out of context. Semantics are so overlooked to the point you can't make a point about anything. Most will think that you're using buzzwords or will misunderstand what you're trying to say. Some of the most common mistakes I find while reading other people's reviews is how many confuse artwork with animation, or premise with plot, or character development with fleshing out. These are not minor mistakes that don't affect the overall impression of a show. Using words out of context not only changes completely the scoring system, but also your perception of the show mutates completely to something entirely different. And to further prove this to you, I will show you this recent comment by someone on Reddit regarding my review of Zankyou no Terror. The main two guys are indeed terrorists and not hooligans. The reason being, hooligans are doing only small-scale vandalism with no thought put into it, while these two did massive-scale damage with a goal behind it. Now, I'm not sure if there is a different word than hooligan that defines the latter, but I'm pretty sure that lots of acts of vandalism have a political message behind them. What do you think the mass damages done by mobs during riots are all about? A message against the authorities. And that is exactly what the two protagonists were doing. Then she goes on saying how these two are terrorists, but not the typical kind. They are humane terrorists because they care about human lives. I am not sure if such a thing is even possible or if there is a better word for it, but the way she phrased it makes no sense to me. Terrorists are supposed to inflict terror, and they don't care if someone dies while doing that. And since they are not inflicting terror, how come can they even be called that? From this very simple example, you can see how many things change completely just because we weren't using words in a way that makes sense to both of us. They may seem minor at first, but they end up changing completely the credibility of your claims in the eyes of others. They even change your own perception of a series by accepting or rejecting the way things are named or described in a show. Does Naruto really have ninjas? Is Mahuka really about meritocracy? Did Slane did all that crap out of fear? Proper terminology is vital to how much you will like a show. Semantics are not there as an afterthought. They prove how much thought was put into the script and the setting. For purposes of entertainment, you can always accept everything they tell you at face value, but that won't negate the actual quality the creators put into the script and the research they did to make it all seem plausible. And now I can only hope I used the proper terms to describe all that, otherwise some of you will have reached to some pretty weird conclusions by now. Holy crap, what am I reading? Did we really reach to a point where we need age advisory because the title of a series is misleading? What comes next? Slayers is a misleading title because it doesn't have gore, and Roca Heroes of the Six Flowers is misleading because it's not about floriculture? And since when is Gundam, of all things, a misleading title? We are talking about an iconic franchise everybody knows about, which began by showing entire colonies going kamikaze on Earth and killing half of humanity in the first few minutes. Did the people who complained about this only knew about build fighters? Just because one Gundam universe was a stupid proxy battle show for kids, whole Gundam thereafter need to be that? And holy mother of God, since when is this particular title misleading when it's called Iron-Blooded Orphans? Since when are such words kid-friendly? It's fine if it has age advisory, but judging a show by the title is stupid.
You should be judging it by the source material and if it has a school setting. Many of you complained about the recent video where I make fun of Chibi once again and demand an explanation for why I keep attacking him. Since apparently it's not obvious enough to need explaining and you're too stupid to get it, I will do you the favor and explain it like you are all mentally challenged. Look at the title of the video I made fun of. It says discussion. What do you expect to see in a video titled like that? 2 or more people discussing a show. Can you tell me where that discussion is? The only thing I saw was an autistic man-child overpraising a mediocrity. Or do you honestly think that by posing a question at the end of an 18-minute autistic monologue excuses the title of discussion? Because if you think that, you're idiots. This has nothing to do with the video. It is something that may or may not happen in the comments. And it's also something that can happen in any video regardless of how you name it. Therefore, there is no point in naming it a discussion. Now look at the title of the video I made. What do you expect to see in a video with cringe compilation in the title? A cringe compilation, which is exactly what it was. So why are you accusing me for offering a video that is exactly what the title says it is, but you're perfectly fine with another video which is not what the title says it is? Then you call me the cancer of the anime community for making fun of someone just because he's excited about a show. Really, is that the reason I'm making fun of him? Then why wasn't he excited about any show when he was no longer making money out of his videos, Could it be because he was not really excited about the show, but because he's making money out of acting like an autistic man-child? So why are you accusing me for making a video named after what he's actually doing, but you're otherwise loving him for exploiting you with videos that have nothing to do with what he's doing in them? If his videos were named Autistic Impressions, I wouldn't mind. Yet look at that! I have a channel dedicated to exposing the truth, so why are you complaining? That's what I'm here to do! I'm named That Anime Snob. I made a video titled Cringe Compilation. What is your problem when it's all there in the title? And it's not just me. Recently, Digibro made a video where he didn't circle jerk around Phantom World, something he openly admits in the title, and people attacked him for not praising the pretty colors. It's not about what the video is about, it's simply about him not being an overpraising man whore like most channels are. This is the community we have created. You're not allowed to speak your mind if it's not going to be positive. My point is, you don't care about what a video is telling you it's about. You just want instant gratification by hearing only positive things. You can now imagine how worse things are going to be when VR becomes commonplace. Retro wins and the future is only going to get worse.
Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
This guy was making a big fuss over people who couldn't enjoy an anime by saying it's a cartoon, meaning it's not real, therefore they can't like it. Aside from the fact that live-action movies and series are also not real, as well as whatever we perceive is also not reality, but rather a simulation of our reality as perceived from our senses. The guy who made the video used the "it's just a cartoon" quote as a buzzword, meaning that by itself the quote can be used in any way you like, and it's the elaboration of said quote that gives it context. Once you do that, it's no longer about the quote, it's about whatever you want to say by using a blank statement as an opening quote.
Yeah, you have a good time last night?
Smurf-tacular.
Yeah, I saw you leave with Smurfette.
Oh man, as soon as we got out of the bar, she started smurfing me.
Shut the Smurf up.
Yeah.
Right in the Smurfing parking lot?
Smurf, yeah.
Oh, that is freaking Smurf.
You smurf it.
That is freaking Smurf.
Yeah.
To make it more clear, "it's just a cartoon" can both mean I don't like it because I can't believe it's real, the same way it can mean I like it because it makes the impossible possible and therefore gives me something I can't have in my life. Once you do that, the initial quote doesn't matter and therefore becomes a buzzword. It's something that happens a lot on the internet, when someone looks at a title and immediately jumps to conclusions without reading the elaboration that follows, or when he reads a comment and immediately assumes the one who wrote the comment is a fan if it's positive or a hater if it's negative. Although words have a specific meaning, nouns by themselves have no context. In this case, it's the word cartoon, and sentences can have double meanings when they are vague or not elaborated. The Oracle of Delphi was doing that with its predictions in ancient Greece, the same way politicians are doing it all the time nowadays for winning people of opposing beliefs through vague promises that somehow benefit everyone.
Why exactly should I vote for you, Mr. Fogarty? Well, because I'm a hard worker. I take a stand. On what exactly? The issues of the day. Which are? The things that concern you and your family the most.
If you don't get why I am making this video based on that other video, it's not because I was looking for a buzzword, but because I am making fun of buzzwords. Any analyst that respects himself would never focus on the buzzword, which would lead to giving whatever context he wants after that. He did exactly that. He talked about one possible interpretation instead of every possible interpretation, and he didn't even consider what I said when I corrected him. This is bad analysis and a prime example of why why people don't know what they are talking about, since all they are doing is talking.
America!
But he didn't say anything! Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
Destiny is one of the laziest ways to excuse plot convenience in fiction, and one can thank religion for it since it became famous through it. Ancient epics and chronicles are all about fatalism, since at a time when mankind didn't know much about science, it was looking for hope at supernatural entities. No religion would be able to maintain its followers if its gods weren't certain of what the hell is going to happen next, so they were making everything to seem like it's part of a master plan. The story of Jesus Christ refined the formula by making the chosen one to be looking and acting like an everyday human being, thus far easier to relate with compared to the distant deities of previous centuries. Literature borrowed this concept in its fiction and used it in the making of the archetypical messianic figure of today, or what anime fans came to call it, Jesus-kun. The appeal of the archetype lies in the double standards of behaving like a relatable normal person on one side, while being destined to rightfully win at the end for being better than the rest on the other. This way the audience can like the character no matter what he does. The thing is, this model was working fine while fiction was not preoccupied with character development. For as long as personalities remained monolithic representations of certain ideals and mentalities, Destiny was simply reaffirming the justice and righteousness of the good archetypes over the evil archetypes. This changed during the booming of the 19th century coming-of-age stories, which were all about the characters growing up and learning from their experiences. Came to be known later on as the tale of the underdog, and it involved common people, not just nobles and other privileged sects, overcoming obstacles not by being born to win but by giving their best and never giving up, despite the unfavorable odds and the outcome not being predetermined. The underdog is not about winning, it's about not relying on popular expectations or fixed resolutions to keep going. Losing is still possible, but not because fate said so, like in the older epics, but rather because in many cases it was more pragmatic for common people to being unable to overcome problems far beyond their capabilities. Destiny takes away meaningful internal conflicts. A basic aspect of a relatable character is not being a boring Gary Stu who is doing everything perfectly. He has flaws like doubting himself, making mistakes, feeling guilt and insecurity. These things don't mean anything if fate has predetermined everything. Jesus Christ's temptations in the desert are as hollow as finding out Naruto is a chosen one instead of an underdog. Giving up or hopelessness do not mean anything because you know you will eventually follow a predetermined path regardless of how you feel or what you do in the present. There is no free will, characters behave like robots, and that is not relatable. Destiny is a terrible plot device used for lazy cop-outs and creates bad fiction. It must never be taken seriously.
Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
Another day, another article spreading misinformation that worsens the brain rot of young people. This time it's about the deconstruction of the Chosen One trope in My Hero Academia. As always, you can easily use the exact same lies for any protagonist of any shonen, and if the reader has no idea what the terms mean, he will accept them as facts and will spread misinformation. So in order to fix that, let's make clear what a Chosen One is. It's someone who has been chosen. Mind-blowing revelation, I know. It's not like the word itself wasn't obvious. And yet many will refuse to admit the obvious. If you are chosen to do anything, you are a chosen one. That means, if there is someone who chose someone else to do something, then that someone is a chosen one. Deku was chosen by All Might to be his successor, so he is a chosen one. Luffy was chosen by his devil fruit, so he is a chosen one. And although the term has been popularized to imply that someone is chosen to accomplish something very important, if you broaden the term, everyone is a chosen one. The Jews think they are God's chosen people. The Christians think God has a purpose for every and each one of them. If your mother orders you to throw out the trash or clean your room, you are still the one chosen to do it. There is absolutely nothing special in being the chosen one, and everyone is technically chosen to do something all the time. Further confusion comes from when the term chosen one blends in with destiny. If someone is destined to achieve something before he is even born, as opposed to being chosen after he is born based on his actions, then he is still considered being a chosen one. This is where special lineages come into play, since quite often someone is chosen before he is even born, just because he is part of a family with prestige or superior genes. Ichigo was chosen to be an experiment to fuse every race into one. That guy whose name I can't remember, the protagonist of Jujutsu Kaisen, was chosen to be Sukuna's vessel through bloodlines. They had a destiny to fulfill just by being born with specific genes or abilities. In this case, it's pure racism. If some people are born superior to everyone else just by being born, then it's racism. They are Supermen and the rest are dregs. Not the kind of chosen one anyone would want to admit liking, and yet it's the one most fighting shonen are going for. An extra clarification that has to be made when deciding who is chosen and who is not is that you can't choose to be chosen. It's something somebody else does for you. Whether it's God or a mentor, you have no choice in the matter. It's not a title that can be taken just because you really want it. It can only be given. So whenever you hear a very typical excuse where they try to make someone being a deconstruction of the trope of the chosen one because he really wanted it like Deku, or he trained really hard and earned the title like Luffy, this has absolutely nothing to do with becoming the chosen one. You cannot choose it yourself, somebody else has to do it for you. Whether it's God or a mentor or the people around you accepting you as their savior, they make the decision, you do not. Desire or effort don't mean shit, and anyone who uses any of that to prove why someone is a deconstruction or some bullshit just doesn't know a thing and should keep his mouth shut. So, to sum it up, we are all chosen to do something, therefore being the chosen one doesn't mean anything. If you think some people are born superior than everyone else is racism, and if you really want or try hard to achieve something, it doesn't matter since you can't choose yourself. How can you possibly deconstruct that and then brag about a series being a subversion or some bullshit? By having a character who is not chosen to accomplish anything, which is impossible since everyone is chosen to do something. Even slice of nothing stories aren't that aimless. You can also have a character who is not born with superior genes or abilities and doesn't have a great destiny ahead of him. By this definition, every slice of nothing show is a subversion of every harem, fighting shonen, isekai, and power fantasy in general. Since this is what these shows are all about, people who by default have powers no other mortal possesses and do great things with them. As for having someone desiring something and working hard for it, this has nothing to do with being the chosen one. There is nothing to subvert and should not be taken into account. Now let's see why articles like this one here are full of shit and do nothing besides spreading brain rot. Deku was not destined to defeat All for One. He was not born for this purpose, and therefore there is no subversion. Deku not being born with powers and instead being given powers is not a subversion. By this definition, every superhero who was born normal and then got powers through radiation or chemicals is automatically a subversion. The Hulk is a subversion. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles are a subversion. Super Goofy is a subversion. Deku's powers having setbacks is not a subversion. Deku doubting himself as unworthy is also not a subversion. The Prophet Muhammad in Islam wanted to kill himself and often considered himself unworthy despite being chosen by God. And even Jesus was tempted by the devil in the desert and doubted himself when he was about to be arrested by the Romans despite being sent by God. Are these two subversions? They are the two most known chosen figures. Deku not being able to succeed all by himself and needing the help of others is not a subversion. Christianity and Islam did not become so big only thanks to Jesus and Muhammad. They had plenty of disciples who spread the word. By the way, yes, I am using religious figures when I should instead be using fictional characters, even though there is no difference. Because can you really think of a chosen one in fiction who just gets all the power, never struggles and never doubts himself? Can you think of a single one who never had to go through no conflict whatsoever? Superman struggled with his emotions, One Punch Man struggled with boredom, even Kirito from Sword Art Online often had mental breakdowns. Who the hell can possibly fit this chosen one stereotype? And the answer is the Mary Sue. The ultimate power fantasy, a featureless self-insert that every writer with respect tries to avoid because of how boring it is. If you have to scrap the bottom just to get to a valid example that the vast majority of people don't even like, then you reach to a point where almost everything is a subversion when compared to the stupid Mary Sue archetype. If this is how low you have to drop just to make a point nobody can take seriously, then you have no idea what you are saying and you are spreading brain rot.
Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
You know all those people who consider anime to be for kids? Many others think it's deviant porn. This can't be right. They cannot be both true. So what's going on? These are some rough estimates I found on Mal based on the tags for major demographics. As we see, none of them exceed even a third of the total. Thus, these statements are false. They are in reality generalizations based on what non-fans are seeing advertised the most. Most anime are in fact for teenagers. But that's the thing, there are many who consider shonen to also be kid stuff, because teenagers are still immature children in the eyes of most adults. The thing with the shonen demographic is that it has a huge age group starting from 12 years and all the way to 17. Western Age Advisory is dividing this age range into several smaller ones depending on explicit content, which is an easy way to understand why the content differs significantly from fairy tales to gore fests, even though they are in the same demographic. Lumping them all together as one thing is a mistake. In a similar fashion, assuming all shows within the same demographic or genre have no variety is also a mistake. Many believe that all fighting shonen are the exact same thing, or all mecha series are just giant robots. Although the majority of titles within a genre are copy-pasting the same formulas again and again, saying they are the same thing is a long stretch. They still have differences in animation, directing, script and soundtrack that make some better than some others. Other than that, exceptions prove the rule. You know all those people who consider anime to be cartoons, whereas many anime fans do not accept that and consider them to be their own thing? Who is right in this case? Both of them count as animated features, but that is a term nobody is using. The origin of their names is different, even when they are both using the same techniques. Aesthetics, body language and pop references are different, but that is the result of being made by different cultures. In the West, nobody uses a different word for Russian, French or American animation, despite also being visually and aesthetically very different. And even those differences don't mean much anymore, since all cultures are now taking ideas from each other, animators are working in many countries and are imitating lots of styles. The reason this was an issue to begin with was because anime fans considered cartoons to be kid stuff and anime to be for teenagers and adults. Even this distinction doesn't mean much anymore, since newer cartoons have a far more adult-oriented mindset than they used to. So this generalization comes down to anime are cartoons and neither is just kid stuff. The next statement is how seinen series are the pinnacle of mature anime and what people should be checking out if they want something adult-oriented that isn't porn. That is downright wrong, since a great deal of seinen anime are silly moe, which are anything but mature, while at the same time many shonen and kid shows easily top them in complexity and theme exploration. At the same time, moe as an aesthetic is way more respectable than ecchi. Most of us put those together as fanservice, which is true, they are, but fanservice is a very broad term that is not limited to sexual attraction towards the human body, like in the case of ecchi, or character quirks, like in the case of moe. Robots with cool designs can be fan service for mecha fans. Weird poses during battles can be fan service for shonen fans. A realistic depiction of food can be fan service for people with a huge appetite, and they are all titillating their respective audiences. There are many types of fan service, and they are not used in the exact same way all the time. So no, moe is not ecchi, even when there are many cases when they are both used at the same time. A big part of anime are aimed at otakus, which have a very bad reputation and are also the ones who sustain the inland industry. Although that is true, not all anime are aimed at otakus, not all otakus are equally creepy, and not all anime are supported just by them. Although trends are defined by the core audience and export dropped significantly after the crisis began, there is still a significant market overseas helping out financially, even if it's mostly through merchandise. The last generalization has to do with how anime are a niche medium for a very specific type of people. If this has to do with popularity, their fame has exploded thanks to the internet. If it's about how many people are fans, there are a lot more nowadays than there were a decade ago. Publishers are putting far more effort in subtitles and decent voice acting, and many Japanese traditions and norms are not as obscene as they used to be. American cartoons are still far more mainstream, and even there you find many anime references and influences. A large portion of watchers are not strictly cartoon fans or anime fans, and they are usually watching series outside their age group. It's very hard to see it as niche anymore when most people check out what is very popular, even on a casual level and regardless of the intended audience.
Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
Something I hear a lot lately is that something is not plot armor or plot convenience if it's established to be part of the setting from the very beginning. The ones saying that confuse the term ass-pull with the term plot convenience. An ass-pull is a lazy cop-out thrown in the story without justifying its existence. It is a form of plot convenience, but it's also not the only form. Even if something is excused to exist within a fictional setting, it is not automatically free of blame. Many elements are created from the very inception of a story just so they can give an unfair advantage to major characters. If the sole purpose of an element is to create convenience and has otherwise no other functions or purpose of existing, it's still plot convenience.
Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
Although not as extreme as words such as deconstruction, subversion, and thought-provoking, the word refreshing is another term that is frequently used by plebs in order to explain their fondness of a show. Why do you like this show? Because it's refreshing. What does that mean? Down to it, absolutely nothing. What they usually mean most of the times is that something sticks out from the lot without necessarily being better. But since that won't make it sound like the show they are hyping is good, they instead frame it differently. Kaguya-sama is another rom-com, but it's refreshing because they treat love as war. Shield Hero is just another isekai, but it's refreshing because it has fake rape allegations. Black Clover is just another crappy shonen, but it's refreshing because there is no better fighting shonen airing at the moment. Down to it, this word attempts to overrate a gimmick that makes an average show to stand out from any other similar show at the time of airing. I still remember the hype surrounding Monster Girls, and how everybody's excuse for liking it was being refreshing to have monsters as waifus. And because it was a moderate success, soon a dozen other Monster Girl anime came out and it wasn't refreshing anymore. This word has no meaning besides being part of a fad. When your average consumer can only excuse his fondness of something with "it's refreshing," then the companies will focus on rehashing the apparent gimmick that made the show successful, and before you know it, it's not refreshing anymore. Because the first thing the industry tries to do with something that's considered refreshing, it's to no longer allow it to remain refreshing. And that is why the word refreshing has no value as soon as the fad dies out. Sword Art Online was called refreshing, and now it's considered to be the definition of oversaturated trash. Anyone who uses that word will never have my respect.
ReZero plays off the increasingly common isekai or in another world trope you can see displayed across any anime streaming site, but it also deconstructs it in a way that is immediately refreshing.
Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
The word trap is all of a sudden a no-no for the same reason everything will eventually get cancelled. Because 10 people out of almost 8 billion got offended. Is it a slur that is used against cross-dressers in a way that sounds like it's a joke or something to be ashamed about? Yes, but it's nothing new. It's the same thing as referring to Germans as Nazis or Jews as greedy assholes, and to blacks as bike thieves. Even my country's made fun of every time we mention the economy. It's a joke, and there is one for every race, political movement, philosophy, lifestyle, and sexual preference. In a healthy society, it doesn't matter whom you are making fun of, because everything is made fun of. There is equality and balance in that way. So when 10 people out of almost 8 billion get offended and begin to cancel words, it doesn't make any sense. Why would you not be made fun of when everybody else is? Do you think you are special? You want special treatment because you're better than all the rest of us who have to tolerate other slurs that are aiming at us? And I heard all the excuses regarding that. Why are you making fun of us? We are not making fun of you. The answer to that is, you are free to do so. Just because you don't do it, it doesn't prevent me from doing it. Mockery is a low-effort form of criticism. You don't like something, you make fun of that something, and the actual reasons become apparent the more you keep making fun of it. Why do straight men make fun of cross-dressers? Because they don't want to be fooled into having sex with another man who pretends to be a woman. That's the reason. Why are cross-dressers offended by that? because they want to normalize their sexual preferences. They can't stand the thought of not being accepted by heterosexuals as something normal that you must not make fun of or agree to have sex with. That doesn't make sense from the perspective of a straight man, because as far as heterosexuals are concerned, tropes are gay. But from the perspective of the cross-dressers, they are not. They are women because they identify as women, and therefore they should be treated as women. Good luck convincing me about that. Someone who is heterosexual believes there are only two genders, and you cannot magically flip-flop between them whenever you feel like it. But that is not how they see it. Transvestites believe that they have transitioned from one gender to another. They identify themselves as what they were not born as, and they demand to be treated as what they think they are. So when they hear someone calling them tropes instead of women, they get offended, because from their perspective they are not tricking a man into having sex with another man, because they are women. Which doesn't make any sense to me, because as I said, I don't accept the idea of being whatever you identify yourself as. You are what you are born as, either male or female. If you turn out to be gay or lesbian or any of the other 5,000 genders they made up, it's by choice or nurture, not nature. I don't believe you are born homosexual, in the same way I find nothing natural in mutilating your body with hormones and chemicals and surgeries for turning into a grotesque imitation of what you think you are. I find it ugly, repulsive, unnatural, and I will keep making fun of it because I don't want it in my life. If anyone doesn't like that, he or she or Z is free to make fun of white heterosexual males like myself all they want. I'm not gonna stop those people or be offended by it. Humor is great. It takes the stress away. It makes you happy. Do you think any of those non-white heterosexual males who get constantly offended by everything and want everything to get cancelled are happy people? They are miserable and joyless, and that's why they get offended instead of joking about it. And that is why tropes are gay, why they shouldn't be banned as a word, and why anyone disagreeing with that is a bike-stealing Nazi Jew.
Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
When it comes to heroism, I always defined it as simply being selfless enough until you are called a hero for all your selfless deeds. This term nowadays has a completely different meaning for most people. It just boils down to the protagonist of a story being a hero right away, regardless of his actions. He doesn't have to prove it first with selfless acts. He just needs a selfish goal, like becoming the best Pokemon master in the world, and then to never give up. In order to make the term a bit more elaborate, I will use the 4 cardinal virtues, which were used in ancient Greece and were then partially adopted by Christianity. They come down to proper decision-making, following the laws, staying true to your beliefs, and having self-control. Now think how many characters in modern anime have these attributes. I am sure only the staying true part is prevalent, and even that often comes off as a stubbornness instead of fortitude. Everything else is up in the air. For all intents and purposes, almost every hero in anime is not a hero, according to the classical meaning of the word. It's even worse when it comes to most content creators who constantly yell about how much these heroes have affected them, when in reality they are behaving as the worst villains who are opposing their favorite heroes. They never make any decisions of their own, they just side with whatever is popular at the moment. They don't follow any standards, they constantly take back what they said and apologize whenever they offend a few people, and they always let their emotions to control them. They are the antithesis of heroism. But you know what? They are just morons who want to please the masses. They are mostly stupid sellouts than actually evil people. The same cannot be said about the leftists, who actively and willingly do their best to be evil. They parrot the propaganda they are being fed in schools. They don't follow any standards because everything is a piece of paper. They don't have any steady opinions since they change their mind all the time. And they are always offended by something. Heroes in their eyes are the most evil, manipulating bad guys who only care about power and are angry 24/7. And now that you know the truth, you also know why retro always wins. Classics use the classical sense of heroism, and it's why everyone remembers them so fondly. Modern anime, on the other hand, are some soy boy simp getting the ultimate power right from the beginning without deserving it, and everyone calls him a hero even though he's acting like a villain. I found a stupid who who thought she could make a video explaining the concept of the anti-hero. She messed up royally, and I'm here to tell you why.
Anti-heroes break the mold and idea that the main protagonist should be 100% good and moral.
Anti-heroes don't exist to break the mold of heroes, you stupid.
These kinds of characters disrupt the notion of what a conventional hero is supposed to do.
They are their own thing, the same way chaotic good characters in Dungeons and Dragons don't get created by breaking the mold of lawful good characters. They all exist separately.
They are not in the story to be your usual good cookie-cutter friends or forever protags that you commonly see in shonen anime or in general.
What are you talking about, you stupid? They are everywhere in shonen since forever. They are so commonplace, they also become cookie-cutter since they also fit in a mold.
Anti-protagonists can be unpredictable because they act according to their own scale of morality and what they believe to be good or right for them in a given situation.
That's what villains are doing, you stupid. You are describing bad guys all this time.
In anime, we got anti-heroes like Light Yagami from Death Note, who wants to become the god of the new world, even if that means manipulating and killing literally anyone who gets in his way.
Yagami Light is the definition of a megalomaniac bad guy.
Characters on the morally corrupt side have no shot of redemption, do not want to be redeemed, and would rather die than to show any kind of compromise on their end goals.
Those are literally what one-dimensional villains are all about.
What makes Death Note great is us, the viewer, being able to vicariously see Light trying to accomplish his goals by these sadistic means.
Hey, did you notice it? All this time this stupid is describing queers, progressives, and Antifa. People who break every law, destroy everything they touch, and think they are the good guys.
He wanted to create a new world by killing the scum of society, but more importantly, he didn't want to get caught because he knew that murdering people was wrong.
They just change the definition of justice to whatever they feel like it at the moment and then victimize themselves for making it seem like they did nothing wrong when they were hiding from the law.
By far my favorite part is seeing him die. I'll rewatch the whole thing just to watch him die. Shit. Maybe I'm a little sadistic too.
That's literally sadistic self-destructive tendencies. You love seeing everything that you like getting destroyed. You want to see the world burn. How is this remotely heroic?
What Lelouch did in the end was break the cycle of hatred of the world by making himself the enemy of the world and sacrificing his own life and other desires.
He killed billions and then himself so he won't have to face the consequences for his self-destructive tendencies. How is this remotely heroic?
The turning point for me when I started hating Eren as a character and stopped rooting for him was when he told Mikasa that he always hated her and that she's a slave.
You hate him! He's a villain! What's so hard to understand?
That just means that Eren is a great anti-hero slash villain if he's able to evoke that kind of emotion.
You are promoting self-destructive tendencies as heroic! You stupid... You!
Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
It has a multi-layer meaning to it.
Many like to throw around the word multi-layered for making a show to sound better than other shows, when most of the times a show can be as deep as you want it to be. Sure, the author can address themes or can imply certain messages, but that doesn't make his story more multi-layered than others. It just makes it easier for the viewer to analyze it on multiple levels, because the writer is helping him, if not teasing him, to analyze it. This doesn't prevent the viewer from doing it anyways, it's just that in those cases the writer won't be helping or teasing him into doing it.
It has a multi-layer meaning to it.
You can take any story of any kind and overanalyze the hell out of it. It can be a simple fairy tale, it can be a boring slice of nothing happens, it can be a 3-minute short school comedy. If you are willing, you can talk for hours about it, taking every frame and line of dialogue and sticking a 10-page analysis of its supposed themes to it. You can do it, and according to the reasoning you are following, it's not a lie because it's all there if you look for it. If you don't see it, it's because you don't want to see it. That is how people overanalyze shows like K-On!, which everybody liked for the cute girls, or Bleach, which everybody was watching for the bankais. Let's not forget One Piece theorists who are making fan fiction and then refuse to admit it is because it's all there, therefore it's not fan fiction. It still is, you morons. You reach the conclusions that are not canon. By finding 1,000 things to talk about a show, you are not proving it's deeper than any other show. You are only proving how much you are willing to find and analyze things that exist in any show, not just the one you are analyzing.
It has a multi-layer meaning to it.
Now again, this doesn't mean all shows are equally complex in presentation. Complexity comes down to addressing the themes they have instead of ignoring them. But that doesn't make them more multi-layered, it only makes them easier to be analyzed because they address what they are about. Which is why calling something multi-layered has absolutely no meaning besides overselling a show because you're an idiotic fanboy.
It has a multi-layer meaning to it.
Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
Say, did you know that you're afraid about anything you are negative about? Whenever you say something negative about the Quran, it's because you're Islamophobic. Whenever you say something negative about anime, it's because you are animephobic. Whenever you say something negative about the queers, it's because you are queerphobic. Negativity means fear. By this logic, individuals like Chibi are the bravest people on earth, because they are never negative and go as far as apologizing whenever they are. This doesn't make any sense, does it? Since when is expressing your genuine concerns about something a sign of fear? Pointing out how Islam is pro-slavery, pro-incest, pro-pedophilia, and thrives on keeping everyone ignorant is fear? Pointing out how many anime fans have no issues when it comes to sexualizing minors and forming slave harems and isekais is fear? Pointing out how you don't want to be fucked in the ass by a transvestite that looks like a deformed clown is fear? Since when does expressing your concerns count as being afraid? If anything, fear is when you don't express your concerns because you're afraid of the backlash. You know, Muslims sending a suicide bomber against you because you said exactly how you feel about them. Anime fans flagging all your videos until they fool the bots into shutting down your channel because you said exactly how you feel about them. Some queer taking a machine gun and storming a school because you said exactly how you feel about them. Now that is what I call fear. Shutting the hell up and pretending everything is rainbows and unicorns because you're afraid of stating the truth. What I am doing is not fear, it's the opposite of that. Whatever these losers dub phobic is only things they have no means to defend without changing the meaning of words until something is immune to criticism. It can have negative elements worth pointing out, therefore anyone who is against it is afraid of it. Seriously, you're going to drop that low and make it sound like I am afraid for telling the truth while every sellout yes man out there who is depressed and terrified of negativity and who deliberately avoids talking about things that bother him because he doesn't want to lose likes and subscribers is brave? How stupid are you? The snob is anything but afraid. Take your piece of paper relativism to people who are dumb enough to believe it.
Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
How do you do, fellow kids?
More and more idiots are trying to normalize the term new gen in an attempt to differentiate themselves from old gen, as if there is something wrong with it. This is seemingly the same thing I am doing from the opposite side whenever I say retro always wins and modern bleh sucks. The difference is my claim has a lot more justification than theirs. Anything that is retro is over and it has proven its staying power by being remembered decades after it's over. You can call it nostalgia all you want, but it doesn't change the fact that people care about retro long after they are over and despite being nothing more than infomercials that no longer sell the thing they were made to sell. Modern blood, or new gen in this case, is the exact opposite of all that, thus it loses automatically in every field. They are still new, therefore they have no nostalgia attached to them. They only have hype that nowadays dies in a couple of years at best. Almost nothing has staying power after it's over, because of so much coming out at the same time and nothing lasting long enough or standing out much, or not disappointing everyone because of how bad it becomes at its ending, or simply getting straight to pieces over the internet, something which wasn't the case for anything that is now treated as retro. Along with that, new gen shows are still active infomercials, meaning they still exist to sell the thing they were made for. It's a lot easier to see them as products you are meant to consume and then be excited for more products. So what merit is there in calling something new gen? Because it refined similar titles of the past into something better? Everything that is new is just rehashing ideas of the past, and when they try to deconstruct them, they usually mess up. Even when they do it right, you won't know it for many years to come because they are not over yet. Maybe they are new gen because they have better animation than old gen? First of all, that is not always true, since there are still shows from the 90s that still have better animation than half of everything that is coming out today, and even when they are better animated, that's what they are. Well animated, they're not new gen. The only thing this stupid term does is driving people away. It's as if they are telling you these shows are not for older fans of anime or for veteran watchers. They are only for babies and newbies, which is condescending. Don't you dare watch it, older and more experienced anime fans! This show is only for idiots and babies! Is this the hill you wanna die on, defending from those who consider this term to be insulting? New gen is a buzzword that was invented by idiots who thought this way they will stand out from the established classics. It should not be used for anything other than yet another example of how stupid people can be.
How do you do, fellow kids?
Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
You know, there comes a time when you just have to admit you just like bullshit instead of pretending your taste is superior. Take this guy for example who said my videos have bad logic because they are boring. How can logic be bad if it's boring? It can't. He just can't admit he likes bullshit. And you know that because he admits he can't stand shows making sense. He just wants good stories. And good stories don't make sense. They are like the Fast and Furious movies. They don't follow a formula. Everything follows a formula, mate, including stupid shit like the Fast and Furious movies. Then he says, have fun by abandoning pretentious formulas. This is doubly wrong since, on one hand, you can have fun by following a formula. Most people love formulaic stories. It's why isekai are copying one another and the core buyers are not tired of them. On the other hand, having a formula is not pretentious, it is structured. Every story needs some sort of planning or it will never be made, including stupid shit like the Fast and Furious movies. How do you think they film those movies? By doing completely random bullshit? They cost hundreds of millions of dollars to be made. There wouldn't be so many of them by now if they didn't follow a formula people return to over and over again. The same guy comments again on another video saying he will never check my channel ever again because I said Sanji is not handled well in One Piece. He doesn't like me because I'm theoretical. It is not a theory, mate, I explained why he's not handled well. There is nothing to theorize, it's a fact. Then he says I am being snobby. Well, excuse me for not noticing my channel is named that way. What the hell did you expect? He then repeats he doesn't like formulas because they are boring, and they are boring because they are repetitive. Again, people love formulas. It's why genres and demographics exist, because people have specific preferences and want more of what they like. He then says formulas are uninspiring and just bad. How is that humanly possible? Formulas are the definition of inspiration. People are inspired by what they like, and they make their own stories based on what they like. How is that bad? Then he says great writing requires authenticity, aka it should be unlike anything we've seen before. Something which is never true since we have seen it all before. There is no such thing as originality. And that includes a stupid shit like the Fast and Furious movies. What is authentic about them? They all have car chases, explosions, cool dudes and hot babes. They all follow the same formula and they did not invent the formula, so what the hell are you talking about? You just like stupid shit. You don't want to admit you like stupid shit, so you hide behind buzzwords that you don't even know what they mean.
Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
Here is something we haven't heard in a while. Frieren is boring and that is a good thing because it's deliberate. This video is not about Frieren, it's not about what makes something boring or what deliberately means. It's the mental gymnastic of claiming something that most perceive as bad is not bad because it's done deliberately. Someone with a triple digits in his IQ will hear this and immediately wonder when is something not deliberate. It's when it's accidental, aka when you step on a banana peel, or when it happens without any thought put behind it, or maybe it's there because that's how you felt like at the time. Now please tell me, why is Free Eren not doing any of that makes the show better in any way? One Piece is in many ways the opposite of Free Eren. It's written on the fly based on whatever Oda feels at the moment, and then retroactively makes connections or just retcons whatever he doesn't like. In this sense, almost nothing he does is there to foreshadow something, since he often doesn't foreshadow, it's the fans who assume he does, or he contradicts his own foreshadowing. And yet it still has a huge fan base. So how come Free Eren deliberately being boring is better than One Piece that is not aiming to be boring? A more proper answer would be that Free Eren is not forcing filler time down your throat, like most shonen used to, just so they could stay away from the ongoing source material. The downtime is part of the source material and thus it's meant to be slow-paced. But that cannot be called deliberate, since not having filler is as deliberate as having filler. What I'm trying to prove with this is that everything is deliberate. No show is made accidentally. Nobody trips inside an animation studio and a whole series is created by the time he gets up. Hundreds of people sit down and carefully animate it for at least 1 year. They follow specific procedures. They don't randomly draw what they feel at the moment or press random buttons. Even if the end result is a god-awful show, everything in the creation of a series is done deliberately. There is intent behind it. Not necessarily well thought out or excused, but it's there nonetheless. Therefore everything is deliberate, and thus calling Free Eren deliberately boring means absolutely nothing.
Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
Here's the next glazing for a show that doesn't really worth that much of your time. Dun 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 is apparently the next big thing because of its genre cocktail. Meaning it doesn't follow a mold, it follows many, and that is something that has never happened before in the history of anime. Only thing it has. Most anime are a mix of genres, none of it is just one thing. Yet almost none of them were ever the next big thing. The best chance they had was with Brigadoon, and who the heck remembers that show anymore? The reason is very simple. Very few actually care about the genre cocktail. The vast majority cares about a few very specific things, and as long as it gets them, it doesn't care about anything else a show can be about. If you haven't noticed it, all the popular shows of the past 5 years are about occult monsters, exorcists, magic swords and hot babes, with fancy animation as the side dish. Everything else matters only for glazing videos like the one you see here, that doesn't really mean anything. And you know they don't mean anything if you pay attention to what all those series that get constantly axed very fast in Shonen Jump have in common. They don't have a lot of those very few specific things the core audience wants. A genre cocktail is a secure way to get a show axed if the main ingredients are not what most like to read about. Therefore, this guy here gave you yet another example of complete bullshit. Genre cocktail means nothing. Dun 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 is successful because it's occult and has hot babes. Maybe a relatable protagonist as well for being a useless beta dork. Give people some damn bankais and stop overthinking the rest, goddammit.
Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
In case you didn't hear, the One Piece anime paused, and in its place they are now airing a better animated Fishman Island arc. You would expect there would be one version at a time so people won't be confused, but no, now there are 4 distinct versions of the same story. The manga version, the first anime version, the live-action version, and the better animated version. And if you count the heavily edited 4Kids version, it's actually 5. And if you include the early leaks version that always has major differences with the official translation, it's 6. And if you include the headcanons the fanboys have created based on those leaks, the far-fetched theories they conjured out of their twisted imaginations, and everything they confuse because of the constant retcons, there are now a million different versions of One Piece. Talk about brain rot. Anyways, I wanna point out how out of all of them, the Fishman remake happens to be the only one that counts as being entirely filler. This may sound weird when you're told it's actually taking out the filler and moves much faster than the original version, yet that's what it is when you look at the definition of filler, which is padding screen time in order to give the still ongoing manga version enough time to move forward. Despite the original anime adapting half a chapter at average by moving like a snail, it is still adding color and motion and sound which don't exist in the manga. Also, the live-action version, the 4Kids version, the early leaks version, and the headcanon versions differ considerably from the manga. Now take the Fishman remake and try to think why it's not filler. It's a derivative of the derivative, which is the original anime, and why they call it the Fishman remake, and exists only to give the manga some time to move forward. Even if you try to excuse it as if it doesn't stretch every scene so it has less filler, it is still rehashing material that has already been adapted. It doesn't even have proper pacing since everyone agrees it moves extremely fast from one thing to another. Thus you can't be invested in the same way you were with the original anime. And if you assume it has better animation so you can watch it easier compared to the original anime, please remember that almost nobody watches the anime anymore. They just check clips of the action scenes they have already seen in the manga. I can even argue that almost nobody reads the manga. They just check the leaks and speculate about what might happen later on. Why would they watch an anime now that every possible theory that could have been made and has been proven wrong years ago? Thus, the Fishman remake is by far the most useless version of One Piece, and it's entirely filler. Because it's a waste of time.
Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
So, someone asked if someone else had a hard time understanding what the hell is going on with the way superpowers work in many fighting shonen. The most obvious example is Jujutsu Kaisen.
Of course!
It's non-stop infodumps about convoluted abilities that nobody can understand. I mean, just look at this mess. It's one of the easiest infodumps to understand, and even that is too much. So some in the comments said it's a skill issue, meaning anyone who doesn't understand how the convoluted superpowers work, it's simply because he is stupid. You need a really high IQ to understand Jujutsu Kaisen. It's totally not a bunch of nonsense that comes down to out-of-screen assballs.
Of course!
Some others had a different opinion. It is not a skill issue when the show is convoluted. You are simply not committed to spend hours in deciphering bullshit and then accepting all that bullshit, instead of simply not accepting it because it's bullshit. So when a defender of this bullshit says, just turn your brain off and accept everything you are told, it doesn't need to make sense, you only need to like it. Someone replied, why should I have to turn my brain off in order to like something? If I actually like something, I shouldn't have to do that. In fact, if something is good only if you turn your brain off, then it's not worth my time. The reply to that reveals the hypocrisy. It's a skill issue. Instead of addressing what he said, he just used a buzzword to end the discussion. The reply to that further pointed that out. If some people are satisfied with less, meaning turning their brains off whenever there is convoluted bullshit, this is not a skill. The final reply was a plain, it's a you problem and I don't care anymore. This ended the discussion and proved what skill issue is actually about. It is lowering the bar and then refusing to call it bad taste by labeling it as a skill. You know, the same way they watch hentai and call it cultured instead of smart. It is nothing but another cheap way to dodge criticism by blaming the one doing the critique.
Of course!
Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
The highest rated new anime is called Taco P, and it's your standard misery porn affair about torturing children. Just have an anime with children suffering and people are going to eat it up calling it deep and thought-provoking, when it's just obscene.
Takapi's Original Sin is honestly one of the most thought-provoking story I have watched and read.
This is nothing new, obviously. Shocking events are part of what make anime more memorable than cartoons, and there is no scarcity of anime with suffering children, but going as far as considering that to be deep theme exploration is a stretch.
An innocent lad, basically. An innocent little creature that is now being introduced to human society and culture that is just truly horrific.
There still needs to be some sort of in-series logic that excuses the obscenity, and almost always there isn't. Many things are allowed to happen just for the sake of having edgy situations. In this case, you are supposed to accept children are being brutally beaten up on a daily basis, and nobody in the school does anything about it. The kids show up full of bruises and cuts and everyone acts like it's normal. And I don't give a shit about excuses of the sort, oh, that's how it's like in Japan, it's real and it happens all the time. If nobody cares about bullying, then bullying is not a problem as they make it seem.
There is no justification for those actions.
Obviously, the defenders of this bullshit are gonna say it is a problem exactly because it is ignored. This isn't some savage place like prehistoric times or Turkey. It's supposed to be a civilized place that ignores its social problems, and that is what makes the situation so tragic.
It brings these very nasty conversations to the surface.
Let's suppose this is true, even if 99% of the watchers don't consider that, and just like it because it's obscene, regardless of the setting or it makes any sense. If society is ignoring the bullying, we the viewers don't see that. We don't see anyone turning a blind eye whenever the children are full of bruises and are clearly depressed. Therefore, there is no in-story excuse, it's all a headcanon. It just comes down to being obscene for the sake of being obscene. It's misery porn, where bad things happen to children just to get an emotional response out of the viewer. As much as some might try to excuse it as if it's fiction, so it doesn't need to make sense, it only needs to make an impression on you, I can just as easily say it's bad fiction because it has no in-story logic. Good fiction has in-story logic and therefore it makes a good impression on you. Bad fiction only gives you bad impressions. And I have watched enough bad anime to know what counts as bad impressions. Whether it's called Elfen Lied, Bokurano or Erased, they are all obscene for the sake of sensationalism. They have nothing to teach because they have no in-series logic, everyone in them is a one-dimensional black hole of negativity just so they can shock the viewer. They don't do anything else, it's where the whole thing stops and it's never further elaborated. It is shallow, lazy, and nothing worth praising. Oh, and needless to say, if you have mental issues, such anime are not gonna help you because they are relatable. They are just gonna make things worse for you, because they both don't teach you anything and further promote what you are suffering from.
Takapi is gonna end up becoming even more of a monster than everyone else within the series because of the actions that he is seeing.
Also, no, you cannot claim it's fiction and it has no effect on you. There wouldn't be so many easily impressionable people saying how deep the show is if it had no effect on them.
A lot of people on the internet have discussed that people think it's disgusting to basically be happy to see her gone.
And that is why the highest rated anime of the season is not worth the praise and it won't be remembered fondly.